Welcome back to the WTS Podcast. My name is Steve Ramsey, and this show is all about creative people. This episode is brought to you by Shaper Tools, maker of Shaper Origin. Shaper Origin is an intuitive, handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. Woodworking with Origin is simple. You steer Origin while it makes the necessary real-time adjustments to ensure clean, accurate results. Have you seen this thing, Matty?
I have seen it. As you were doing the ad read, the last time I was on your podcast, I said I didn't have a CNC machine, and then 2 weeks later, one showed up at my studio. So I have to maybe I have to put it out there. I don't have a shaper, so it would be really cool to have a shaper.
Hey, shaper, you might want to get on that. Unnecessary Inventions could use one of these things. So with its easy-to-use touchscreen interface, you can quickly create designs on the spot or upload existing project plans. It's small enough that you can use Origin in the shop or take it with you on the job site. With Origin, traditional workflows become easier and more reliable. Tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and much more with speed and precision. Learn more about Shaper Origin at shapertools.com/WTS. As an added bonus, you can try it risk-free. Who wouldn't want to do that? You can try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Upgrade your workshop today at shapertools.com/WTS. And a little bit of housekeeping. Guess what I did? I created a website for this show. Of course, you're already listening to this show somewhere, so why in the world would you want to go to a podcast website? Honestly, I have no idea. Maybe it's like you're into this idea of retro internet and you just want to go to websites of things, I guess. I don't know. You know what it is I wanted to set this thing up so that mostly for guests to the show, so I could send them to one place and they could look and see all the thumbnails of people on the show and they go, oh yeah, I guess this guy's legit because he had Matty on the show. So I guess I'll join him too. Do you have a website, Matty?
I do.
Well, you've got one for your products, I know.
Yeah, I do have one. It's basically like a website version of my Instagram feed. So it's just sort of like each individual. I get 50,000 visitors a month though. So people still use websites.
Well, here's another thing. It's kind of neat on this website I set up is it's made for podcasts really, and it's got this voicemail feature on there. It's got a little tab on there that you can record a message that I could play on the show. So if anybody out there wants to give that a try it out, and maybe I'll put that on the show sometime. Just look for that little red tab. Anyways, check it out. See where I'm dropping $15 a month on. Head over to thewtspodcast.com. Be sure to bookmark it too.
Oh yeah, you got to get it in the tab there. Bookmark tab.
Bookmark, yeah. For the past 3 years, Matty Benedetto has been the host, creator, and evil genius behind Unnecessary Inventions, where he showcases his, totally unnecessary inventions that solve problems that don't exist, but actually seem kind of practical in a twisted way. When I last chatted with Matty in July 2021 on my other podcast, his channel had 500,000 subscribers and 135 million views. Today, here we are just 10 months later. Unnecessary Inventions has 1.4 million subs on YouTube and is gaining about 100,000 a month. I've seen it go as much as 200.
Sorry.
100,000 a month.
Oh, 100,000 views.
100 now. You're gaining 100,000 subs a month on that channel.
100 million views almost last month.
And per month. I know you're going to be up to 1 billion pretty soon. The channel you have over 775 million views, so that'll be over 1 billion pretty soon. He's got 1.2 million followers on Instagram.
Hit 1.3 yesterday. Just keeping all the numbers up there.
With just under you probably have over 300, about 300 posts, I think.
Yep.
And that's pretty amazing. And you're killing it on TikTok with about 4.5 million followers, 4.7.
Yep.
This is how you blow up, kids. You know what? I think your channel exploded as soon as you grew the mustache. I think that was
it is definitely my like living unnecessary invention that I get to take everywhere with me. It's definitely become part of the whole look of everything.
It is. It's your image.
Did
But
I
none
have
of
it
this
last
is.
year?
Well, when you were on our show, you did. Yes, that
Okay,
was when
yeah,
you were
I
just
can't
starting to blow up.
Right.
See, and it all comes down to that mustache. I think I may have to grow one here. So And none of this is surprising when you see the quality of the content Matty cranks out on a regular basis and his amazingly clever inventions. The two really go hand in hand, the video and the invention. Real quickly, a few examples. An iPhone case, it's also a candy dispenser. Reverse headphones, a device to help you double dip food. An unbreakable golf putter. A rug that never gets dirty. A swear jar that generates swears. I really like that one. A gas price protection shield. I think we could all use that right now. A Lego vacuum that sorts bricks. A blanket with a leg hole for when it gets too hot. A corncob butterer, perennial favorite. A bungee cord phone case so you won't break your phone. The list goes on and on. To make these inventions, Matty uses 3D printing, sewing, mold making, woodworking, electronics, laser cutting, and just about anything else. And seriously, I think you are probably the most skilled user of the 3D printer on YouTube. But ultimately, it's his hilarious videos, usually in the form of a mock commercial where Matty's personality shines through, that really completes the package. This is the type of content that Reels, TikToks, and YouTube Shorts are just perfect for. Hey, Matty, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on here.
So, wow, a lot's happened since the last time we talked. I know you did that Superbowl commercial. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely a really fun campaign. So that was with Captain Morgan.
Yeah.
We shot a whole Super Bowl commercial. It was kind of an interesting campaign because I didn't actually have to like physically build the invention itself. So it was like one where it was sort of like I was consulting on the idea, and then it was kind of more like a personality endorsement kind of thing. But yeah, I got to fly to New York, film the commercial. I went to the Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty up there on the list of things I've done so far.
That was pretty amazing. How did that come about?
Just sort of pretty much all of my brand deals are all incoming, agencies that reach out to me and stuff like that. And I sort of filter through all the stuff that if it seems like a good fit for myself, and if it's a brand that I can see myself actually making something that, I'm going to want to put time and effort into. And this campaign, they probably reached out to me in late November. So you think these things are probably planned out a little bit more in advance, but it was late November. We filmed the commercial early mid-January, and then the Super Bowl was mid-February.
Wow. So you got the full VIP treatment there, didn't you? They pay you well for that whole gig?
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
And Super Bowl tickets. I got 2 Super Bowl tickets. That's not a bad cherry on top.
What was that like going to the Super Bowl? Is it the first time you ever been to a Super Bowl?
First time going to an NFL game, so
yeah.
I kind of started things out at the top, and I can't really. So I think I'll just retire going to NFL games.
Yeah.
So I don't follow sports a whole lot.
Yeah. Everybody who does is going, oh man, that guy got to go to the Super Bowl. He doesn't even watch football.
But like the stadium was amazing. It's the brand new stadium in LA.
Yeah.
It was $7 billion. So seeing the stadium, seeing the energy of all the people that were there was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And so that punch. So describe what this was. This was a punch bowl that has everything on it.
Right. So they basically we ended up just kind of sometimes the things that land the best are the things that are just so hitting the nail on the head. We made a Super Bowl punch bowl. Just making the most ridiculous. So it fits enough liquid to serve. I think they said 32 people. 1 cup each, but it had Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capabilities. So during the game, it was hooked up to the internet, and it would live show you the score of the game. If someone was in the red zone or something, the whole bowl would turn red. If someone got a touchdown, the colors of that team would go. Had a speaker inside, had a subwoofer, and if you turn the subwoofer up super high, it would vibrate the bowl, then also mixing the punch inside the bowl.
See, that's brilliant, really.
So it had all these like different tech components, and we made about 20 of them, mainly given out to other influencers, and they did giveaways and stuff like that throughout the whole campaign.
Oh man, you're still living in Vermont? You're still in Vermont, right?
Yep, I'm up in Burlington, Vermont.
Burlington, wow. You've lived there your whole life?
So I moved up here in 2008 to go to college. So I went to school for marketing. So I think that's kind of where like where my videos land well, is that like I'm really thinking about like the product name and the product copy and the, you know, how this fake commercial is coming off on top of the product design stuff. That was all just self-taught over the years.
Do you see yourself first and foremost as a businessman or an inventor?
If you asked me that like 5 years ago when I was running like regular e-commerce brands for things I sold, I would probably say that. I would say now I'm just a creator. Like I just like at all times just want to be taking whatever's inside my brain and turning it into a physical product. So I think that's like where it boils down to, and that's kind of why I love not selling them, is that I don't have to limit what I'm thinking about making, because I don't have to actually worry about that business side of selling them, and I can sort of focus on, you know, more the fun aspect of it.
Well, you just launched a product too that you're selling. I noticed you have the Unnecessary Inventions card game.
Yep.
It's like
So
tabletop game.
So it's that's sort of where I enjoy, you know, if I'm not going to sell the inventions, you know, creating things that are within the invention world and the Unnecessary Inventions, you know, community of it all. So turning all of my followers into their own inventors. So you get like a little pack of cards that have like kind of the first world problems that I would be solving through my inventions.
Give me an example of one of those.
You know, like how do you keep your pillow cold at night? You know, you always want to flip the pillow over to the cold side of the pillow.
Right.
So that's one of the prompts. It'll sort of give you a fun way of describing that problem. And then the game also comes with 6 dry erase boards and a section for you to draw your invention, come up with a name, come up with a description, and then I give a timer for 2 minutes. I think some people might take longer than 2 minutes. You know, you sketch the idea, come up with all the other information, and then you kind of do like a mini Shark Tank pitch, and each person has to go around the room and pitch their invention idea to solve this problem, and then the whole group votes on who they thought was the best invention. You can't vote for yourself, and then you vote on what invention you think solved the problem the best.
You'll see, now I'm thinking about the best way to keep that pillow cool.
I've still been thinking about it. I think
nothing.
that has to be the most requested, like, submitted problem I get from my fans. And I still haven't nailed down what is that way to do it.
Yeah. See, you know what I want is a pillow that it's a big thick pillow. Because see, I sleep with 2 pillows. I have one on top of my head and then one underneath, so it just blocks out all sounds and light and everything. And I started doing that when I lived in the city, and it was always noisy, and I can hear the traffic, but I always do that. So I want like one pillow that I could just like wedge my head in between the 2 sides.
I'm sure something like that's got to exist somewhere out there. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like I feel like half the time I come up with these inventions and I like do a quick Google search. I'm like,
and it's a real thing.
Yeah, of course it exists.
Well, I think we should we should probably tell people your distinction between an unnecessary invention and a useless invention.
Yeah, I mean, so that's definitely one thing that people will sometimes confuse, is that just because I say it's unnecessary doesn't mean it's not going to solve and physically do something for you for whatever that problem was. So like you mentioned, the double dipper, it physically does chop off the end of that piece of food so that you don't have to eat the double dips. You know, you can go back in for another dip. Do you really need that? Do you need to spend money on a product to cut off the tips of your food? Probably not. But it did functionally do what it said it was going to do.
Well, you know, I got a text from Chad from my other podcast last week about your latest invention. He was like, I want one of those. And this was the burrito.
The burrito bumper.
So you're eating your burrito, and especially, it seems like today burritos are just getting bigger and bigger, and they're huge and they're massive. And so as you eat it, you're losing all of the filling. And so your invention turns it into a taco.
Yep, it's like a car funnel that turns your burrito into a taco. I probably ate like at least 4 burritos while filming that and testing it out and everything.
Right. And you're real upfront real transparent about how your inventions don't necessarily need to actually work completely, that they just need to work for the video that you're making.
Yep. And that's also some of them, they have to work for that 30 seconds that the video is going. And sometimes I do have to do a little bit of video magic into it, but it's sort of kind of leaning into kind of that like made for TV commercial where you're watching it. You're like, did they just do a cut there to make it look like it dried in 5? It's like playing into the, false consumerism, false marketing of it all, that like sometimes you look at it, you're like, wait, how did it just do that thing he just said it did? And then some of them I really want to try to make it actually do what it says, especially if I'm working with like a brand partner. I try to make them not completely fake.
Right.
So it's definitely a mix across them. But yeah, for the most part, I will totally sometimes show the smoke and mirrors that went into making it look like it does what I said it does.
You've had some amazing deals with brand partners too, and I think that's kind of a cool thing that they're doing, is that they come to you and it sounds like they just kind of give you open-ended, make something cool for us kind of thing. Is that how that works?
Yeah, for the most part, it's most of them have been that way. There's maybe been like 1 or 2 where they were like, we have this idea, can you please bring it to life for us? But for the most part, I just sort of get, high level objectives for the campaign or keywords that they're feeling. And, I'll come up with 4 to 8 invention ideas, and we'll sort of eventually then together whittle it down to the one that we think is going to land the best. And I think it just works well compared to maybe some other creators, is that like I am creating something new and tangible for them that then could also live completely off of my channel as sort of its standalone content piece that they might be able to use across their channels as well, even if someone doesn't know who I am.
Right. It's got to be the sponsors is got to be your bread and butter, because you can't be making much money off of AdSense on those shorts. They don't pay anything. And then Instagram and TikTok, you're probably, there's like a fund or something over on TikTok, isn't there?
Yeah. YouTube has their shorts fund now. And
I get a couple
I make a lot more on my shorts fund than my AdSense.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I make in the thousands on my shorts fund.
Wow. That's pretty good. Well, of course you get.
But again, I'm doing 100 million views. When you average that out, it's sort of when it comes down to, I can get the same if I get, a video with a regular long form video with a couple 100,000 views.
And your content is perfect for that 1 minute video. It really is. I think that you probably don't get as many views even close when you do the full build of the project and how it's done and everything, do you?
No, I mean, I like maybe have one video over 1 million views.
Yeah.
They'll sort of land typically anywhere from like 50,000 to 500,000 on the high end, ones that like sort of break through. But yeah, for the most part, it is really that short form content.
It's hard to classify. I think if you had to check a box of, what genre your videos fit into, I guess comedy? Is that what you would call them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, it's like, can you consider like meme culture a category? Right. It's sort of internet, the intersection of comedy and internet culture, I think, is where the two things collide.
You actually had a video on kind of behind the scenes and how you make your videos, and I thought this was kind of interesting. You had pro tips for making a viral video. Number 1, make a cut in the very first second.
Yep. So for me, this is specifically for short form content.
Right.
Is that the first thing you have to do is get someone to stop scrolling. And so I think having a shortcut right at the start that, if they swiped, I always try to sort of have a cropped out version. So it'll show my face, whatever the invention is, so that the first second you see my face, it's going to be some invention thing. And then it super quickly cuts so that it sort of disrupts their feed scrolling, I guess you could say, to kind of get them to first stop. And then they figure out then what is happening from there.
I think that's really good advice. I never had thought about that before because, usually you just start talking or whatever, but 1 second cut, wow.
And even if it's like literally just that, like a wide shot for the first second, that then, even if it's still just your face talking, just then a tighter shot of your face talking, just to kind of break the monotony of whatever the past video might have been.
And your second tip was, and this is probably good advice you probably hear from YouTube itself, is just have a hook in the first 5 seconds.
Yep. Yeah. So definitely with my inventions,
you kind of have a format, I invented X.
Yep. I just posted a video where it's like a compilation of me saying I invented.
Yeah,
like
I saw that.
Times over. So it's like in the first 7 seconds, I want you to fully see start to finish what the invention is and what it does. And then from there, I sort of like restart the process. And then like, okay, this is how the first thing you do with the invention. But in that 5 seconds, I'm like, here's the burrito bumper. It catches all your burrito things and makes a taco. And then it's like, and now to get started, you put the tortilla in the, so it's like,
right.
It's like tell the story. And then I tell it again in a 20-second version to sort of like build upon that story.
So your third tip for making a viral video, leave something out that'll make people comment. I think that one was really smart.
The best, I don't know if I said it in this video from the list you're mentioning, but I did a video about making a Tic Tac jar that doesn't rattle, like the little
right.
case. So it's like you put all the little ones in. And I said, oh, well, I made it so that there's 16 on the front and 16 on the back. So obviously that's 36 Tic Tacs. I got 12,000 comments on that video of everyone telling me that it was 32. It's like everyone loves to correct you when you're wrong. So purposefully do something wrong that people will want to correct you on, and just to drive even more engagement.
It is. People like to problematize, they like to find the one problem that it's in the video. That's the thing that they'll focus on, definitely. It seems like shorts, though, came around right at the right time for you. They started those right when you were just starting. You probably started over on TikTok first, didn't you? Posting videos or not?
Yeah, so probably the first. So I started on Instagram, and the first 125 inventions were all just photos. There was maybe 1 or 2 videos in there. And everything was just photo based. And then I slowly started dabbling a little bit into video when TikTok came out. I was pretty early into TikTok, when it first came out. Didn't really know what I planned on doing with it. But I still didn't I had this guy in the UK who did all my voiceover work back then when I like randomly would do a voiceover for a video. And then it was probably when Instagram hopped onto the whole copying TikTok with Reels is that like that format of the like I invented, here's that with me doing the voiceovers, and sort of that kind of now trademark look of one of my commercials really came to be.
Do you notice that the 3 different audiences are different in the way they react, the way they respond to your videos?
It's hard to say if it's the audiences or it's just the algorithms. It's like I can have a video do mediocre on Instagram and then do 10 million views on TikTok. And I'm like, is it because people on TikTok were resonating with it more? Or was it just the algorithm that decided, let's feed this out to more people? So it is definitely difficult. I mean, I feel like I get a lot of the same reactions of just like, when can I buy this? I want this. This is an unnecessary blah, blah, blah comments over and over on all platforms. So I think you are kind of sometimes just victim to the algorithm.
Do you get people who think, well, probably the name Unnecessary Inventions probably just tells people that it's not a real thing.
You would be surprised how many people don't read.
That they'll just say, this is the stupidest thing ever. I can't believe anybody would, those kind of comments.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Really?
Definitely get a lot of those. Especially, well, I also post a lot of my inventions over on Reddit and definitely get a lot more people not quite happy with them on Reddit.
No, really?
Yeah. Reddit? Toxic? What?
Oh, man. You've been making the rounds. I saw you did a bit on Kelly Clarkson's show. You're doing like mainstream television.
Yep. So I actually just filmed a episode. That's why I couldn't do when we were scheduled to do the podcast a couple weeks ago. I was flying out there to do an episode. That was my fifth time on the show.
On Kelly's show?
Yep. And I also did Jimmy Kimmel for the Super Bowl campaign. Wow. Possibly another late night show I haven't been on yet. Soon coming up. So
what is it? What is everybody's? Why are these people so interested in you and your stuff? What about it?
Well, all of those. I mean, it's like, again, to me, I am never afraid of someone saying no. So like all of those have just been me reaching out to them, being like, "Hi, I think this would be really fun to come on the show and do some stuff."
Oh, and really? You made the contact? Huh?
Yeah. So, well, except for the Jimmy Kimmel one, because that was part of the Captain Morgan figured out all that stuff. But yeah, it's just like me trolling around trying to find the right writers to contact, and I just sort of pitch them my social channels and pitch concepts of us playing around with the inventions with some celebrities, and eventually when you find the right person that gets it'll just click.
I'll bet Kelly Clarkson is really fun to be around.
I tell everyone that she's like exactly the person you think she is. Mm-hmm. And at this point, like, that I've been on the show a whole bunch, it's just really fun she like actually remembers me and like
becoming the regular. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and the celebrities that I played with this past episode I didn't think some of them would be into it, and they surprisingly were. So
who were you with?
It's definitely fun.
Can you tell me?
Sure. I doubt it matters. It was all the judges of America's Got Talent. So it was Simon Cowell, Terry Crews, Sofia Vergara, and Heidi Klum. Yeah. So they were
Howie Mandel wasn't one of them.
He thought the show was in New York, so he woke up in New York that morning and did not make it.
Look at these 3D printers behind you. How many 3D printers you have now?
I think I counted. I've been like reorganizing the studio a little bit. I think I'm at 19, and 2 more should be here by the end of the week. So,
wow.
Yep.
You are
It's quite the little factory.
You're probably the most prolific 3D printer. I even mentioned that in the intro. I think you probably are the 3D printing guy on YouTube, really. I don't know if people realize that. I think
that there's much smarter people about 3D. I'm not great at educating people on 3D printers. There's some really great, like Uncle Jesse and 3D Printing Nerd. There's definitely some people that are good at educating people on how to use 3D printers. And I guess maybe a lot of people aren't showcasing. I guess everything I do is fully from scratch, that I'm 3D modeling everything that I'm 3D printing myself. So you have to kind of 3D model with 3D printing in mind on, like, what face is going to be on the build plate and all that kind of stuff.
Is it hard to learn? Is it hard for you to learn?
It's hard to say. It's like, it's been such like I look back, so I'm working on another project where I'm now going through a lot of my like original inventions and reprinting them to have new final versions of them again. And I'm looking at some of my old 3D models, and I'm like, why was this, designed this way? So it's definitely just sort of, it's hard to think about what I've learned over the years, but now looking back at sort of where I started, I realize how much more I've learned over the past 3 years of just slowly tinkering. And again, that I'll watch YouTube, even if I don't like have something specific in mind I'm trying to do, I'll just sit and watch people on Fusion 360 and just like watch their workflow, and I'll be like, oh, I never thought to like do this step before I do this step, just to like watch how other people use it. And I think that's kind of how I end up learning the processes over time.
So as somebody who's never used a 3D printer, walk me through the process. So you first, obviously it starts with an idea. I have this shape, this thing that I want to make. And do you imagine that in the different components that you're going to put together, and then you go to the software? You just take me through that whole process.
Yeah, for me, my brain is like super visual. So once I like have decided whatever my next invention is going to be, I can almost exactly see the final invention in my brain before I even start working on it. So for me, jumping into Fusion 360, it's sort of like, again, taking those shapes I'm seeing in my brain and translating it into a 3D model onto the workspace. And kind of how I mentioned earlier, you have to think about 3D printing in that, like, if you picture like overhangs and stuff like that, you're gonna have to print supports, and as much as you can minimize that. So it's kind of taking that picture, creating the 3D model, but adapting it to knowing, like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to print this in 3 parts because I'm not gonna be able to, print this arch and have it come out cleanly for the video. So I'm gonna have to, cut the model here and divide it up into the different parts to send to the printers. So it's definitely a learned skill that you, I think, acquire over time with 3D printing, just knowing what geometry works well with 3D printing.
And knowing the limitations of the 3D printer too.
Right, exactly. So it's, and I know it so well now that like that initial image that pops in my head for the invention, I feel like doesn't even have things I'm not going to be able to 3D print. Like it's like built into my brain already, right, the limitations I'm going to have.
Okay, so let's say you've designed your object in Fusion 360. It's looking all the way around exactly how you want it. Then you send it to a printer. So then at that point you put in filaments, right? Is that what it is? And it's like plastic filament. Yeah,
so it almost looks like, I always tell people it looks like almost like the weed whacker wire that goes, it's just a thin 1.75 millimeter plastic. It'll be a little more stiff and rigid, but yeah, you feed that into the 3D printer, and so then it goes into the extruder, and that heats up to typically around like 200 degrees Celsius, and then the nozzle, so then it goes there and melts. One important step before that is taking the 3D model, and you then have to first run it through a slicer software. So you have to tell the 3D printer what is like the print path for every single layer that it goes. So you sort of export the model out of Fusion 360 and put it into the slicer. Most of the 3D printers will come with a slicing software. So basically, if you picture a regular piece of printer paper and you print something out, you printed that image. And then if you printed another piece of paper and stacked it on top of each other with a new image, and that's essentially what you're doing, is just slowly over time, those, super thin layers of paper, you're telling each layer of piece of paper what to print. It does that, and then it moves down 0.1 millimeters, prints the next piece of paper, until, 8 hours later, you have a final finished product.
So is the detail that you can obtain dependent on how thin those layers are?
Yep. Yeah. So you can print, typically I'll print anywhere from 0.1 millimeters for the layer up to 0.3 millimeters. So 0.3, I'll do like, that'll be, and that also will depend on the speed in which it prints, because if it's 0.1 millimeters, it's doing 3 times more layers than 0.3 millimeters. So if don't kind of have a final, like on the computer, it looks like it works, but I want to just like quickly print it, I'll do it in like a lesser quality just to,
like a rough
crank
draft.
It out on the printer. Right. And then I can look at it, move the parts around and see if it's moving the way I thought it was going to move. And then, for the video final quality version of it, typically I'll print those overnight because those might take anywhere from 8 to 14 hours to print. So I can hit print, and then the next morning I show back up in the studio and there it is waiting for me.
So you've got all these printers, and you said you got 2 more coming. Is that just because so that you could produce so much stuff? Because each one takes so much time. Is that why you have different, or are you getting better and better printers each time?
It's more just the manufacturers continue sending them to me. So
that's what
I just kind of keep saying yes.
But do you have several running at the same time usually for one?
Oh yeah, so that's what's real. I mean, it's really nice at this point that, especially I try to really balance having more of my own ideas coming out than branded ideas. So, when the branded projects are coming up, that like I can have 2 printers that are like working through the rough drafts of working on a branded project, but then I can have 4 other printers working on my personal ideas that I want to put out there. And that, it just speeds up the process across everything that, especially if I have something that needs 3 different parts to it, I can print all 3 parts at once. And instead of taking, 24 hours to print each 8-hour section, I can print all 3 8-hour sections all at the same time. And It's done in third of the time.
What's the best 3D printer right now?
The best 3D printer. I'm probably like, so that one is my go-to right now. That's like, I've had that for probably 2 years. It's the Quiddy Tech X Max. And that's actually one that I purchased. So I purchased this white one here. That is a FlashForge Adventurer 3. And to me, I think that's like the best like starter printer. It's like $300. You can literally take it out of the box and plug it in and be 3D printing in 10 minutes. So I purchased that one and that one, 3 years ago. And those are still my go-to diehards, just because it's like I've worked with them for the longest.
Yeah. What would be the difference between a low-end printer and a high-end printer? Is there features that you don't get, or is it just faster?
The biggest thing is probably build volume. So the smaller one I said was $300. That can print 5 inches cubed, while the X Max I think it's a little cheaper now. It's maybe $1,000 now, but that can print like 9 or 10 inches cubed. And then you get into like this one over here is called the Quiddy Tech iFast, and that has 2 different extruders. So you can print 2 colors. So sometimes on those printers, I might have it pause so that I could swap out the filament to, do different colors. But that one will have 2 different extruders going at the same time to do those dual color prints.
You just love that studio, don't you? That's a nice space.
Oh yeah. It's, definitely my dreams. I mean, it's 2,400 square feet.
Wow.
I'm definitely here much more than my house, and it's also like that whole side of the room that you can't see is like the living room and hangout. So it's like when I have friends over, they don't come to my house. We all come here. I have
hang out there.
90-inch TV here. I have my PlayStation here. So it's like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I got to go sit on my couch in my office. Like, so it's like, to me, this is like almost more of my home.
Is this like a street level there in Burlington where people could actually look in through the windows and see?
So I'm one story up. So it's a 2-story building. So right outside my window is Church Street, which is there's no cars allowed on it, and it's the main shopping plaza.
Oh.
And so directly underneath me is Ben & Jerry's, and Ben & Jerry's was founded in Burlington, Vermont. So like underneath, it's a kind of a big tourist attraction, and I have a giant like neon sign in the window that says Unnecessary Inventions. So people in town know that I'm here, and sometimes I get people yelling up to me from the window and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun.
You have a very recognizable face too. You probably walk around town, people stop you all the time and say hi.
Oh yeah, pretty much every day.
Do you get visitors to your unexpected visitors?
I do. I don't let people in the studio. The door kind of says that. Sometimes I'll say hi to you at the door, but I try to keep it. This is my space.
Yeah. You think you're going to stay there in Vermont? You like it there?
Yeah, I mean, especially even after COVID, I feel like it really doesn't matter where you are.
It doesn't. Yeah. That's a beautiful place to live up there.
Right. It's obviously, to me, like, so I grew up outside New York City. Like, New York City would be the only place I would gravitate towards. And I picture a 2,400 square foot design studio is going to be a lot more expensive in New York City.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it doesn't really matter where you are. I was in Vermont, God, a long time ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago. And it was one of those places that I always keep in the back of my head. Like, if ever I wanted to just get away and drop everything and move to someplace, it would be Vermont, because it's just so picturesque and quaint, and it really is kind of like the postcards that you imagine Vermont to look like. These Currier knives paintings, it looks just like that. It's amazing.
I used to do drone photography, and I sold a calendar every year of all the picturesque scenes of Vermont from an aerial point of view.
Covered bridges, ski slopes, Stowe, right? Isn't that the ski slope?
Yep, yeah. That's my my go-to ski resort.
You broke a leg too, didn't you? I remember talking to you about that on the other show. Didn't you break a leg? And that would put you out of service for quite a while.
Not in the good way. Not like, hey, break a leg.
No.
That was, let's see, math. That was 12 years ago now. Almost had it amputated.
Yeah.
Was in the hospital for 4.5 months. 18 surgeries, 5 rods, 21 screws, my right foot is still paralyzed. I drive with my left leg. That's, I think, my fun fact of it. So I don't have like that pedal motion in my foot. So I drive with my left foot. And at this point, I don't think about it.
Does it feel all right now? You move around all right?
For the most part. I'll have a knee replacement pretty soon to spruce everything back up inside there. But
oh, wow.
At this point, I'm just sort of used to it as the way, like, again, like thinking about my 3D printers, like the limitations of the functions, it's like kind of built into my knee too. So it's like I know the limitations of what my knee can and cannot do nowadays.
I think it's kind of cool. You started your business kind of working with your mom, didn't you? As you created a product, and you were sewing, right?
Crocheting, yeah. So
Crocheting.
That was back when I was 13 years old, almost 20 years ago now. Crocheted hats. So my mom just so I grew up like skiing all the time in upstate New York, and my mom taught me how to crochet hats one time, and I ended up, so it's like I have, like, when you sort of ask, like, are you a businessman? Like, definitely 100% would have been me before Unnecessary. Like, I've had random businesses my whole life. And so started crocheting hats and started selling them to kids at the ski resort. And then by the next winter, I made a website. This was 2003, 2004, so still pretty early internet. I made a website where you could design a custom hat, and I would crochet it and ship it to you wherever you were. And then by the next year, I was crocheting my hands off after high school, and I outsourced all the production to China and ran that clothing brand. So I was at an event my clothing brand was sponsoring where I destroyed my leg. I was just skiing the course in between. And so just sort of.
You still crocheting?
I probably maybe did last year when I got bored during COVID. I probably knitted a hat or crocheted a hat, but I.
Do you knit also?
I sort of have, but crocheting would be definitely my go-to if I picked up some needles of what I was going to make.
Yeah. So no, it's crochet or it's hooks,
yeah.
right? My wife corrects me
not
on
the
that.
needle.
I know. I always say you get those needles. She goes, they're hooks. It's crocheting.
Got to get the terminology right.
Right. Say if I gave you say if I gave you $10 million to invest in your business, what would you do with that?
Let's see. I probably would. I've been contemplating more diving into actually manufacturing things and selling them and whatnot. The board game. So the board game, I partnered with a company, and we have distributors for it all in the U.S., Canada, the UK, Australia, and stuff like that. So we've already sold thousands of copies of it to stores and all that stuff.
You're selling retail.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I could see a world where I do invest in actually manufacturing things. I could also see, I don't know if you're familiar with Mischief. They're basically what you described. They're sort of, so they actually have gotten $10 million in venture funding, and they come out with a new product every 2 weeks. It's available. At this point, they've gotten pretty big that they sell out within the first 5 minutes. They just did a collaboration with Tiffany's where they made a Tiffany's participation trophy. They did, they do all sorts of ridiculous projects that are definitely in the marketing world. So I could see doing stuff like that and building out maybe more of a team that
you're still a one-man show?
Still a one-man show. So it would be fun to do. even bigger branded projects that, live on a larger scale than just my social channels.
Would you see yourself as still designing and printing and doing kind of that work, or would you see yourself as more of the overall manager of that group?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think obviously I'm not the only person who can come up with unnecessary invention ideas, but it definitely personally gets a little like, to me, unnecessary is me. So it kind of,
right.
Where if the ideas aren't coming from me, are they really still unnecessary inventions? So it's, I think every artist or creator goes through that of like, to what extent is this just you anymore?
What's the biggest challenge about being the one-man show?
Probably, I would say the biggest challenge for just doing this all myself is continuing to churn out ideas. I mean, a mix of burnout and anxiety, I guess, of, when I'm doing these branded campaigns, they are paying me pretty decently. So it's sort of the anxiety of wanting to perform to that level, while at the same time wanting to make sure that I'm still coming out with fun ideas that are authentic to myself as well. So I think that's probably, and I've mistakenly set a pace from the start that I come out with a lot of inventions. So I think it's keeping up with that pace. I've definitely slowed down. Like when I was doing just photos, I would sometimes come out with 5 a week, that I could just
insane.
Pump them out. So I've slowed down to, I say 1 to 3 per week. On a good week.
You're still making at least one video a week, aren't you? For each video is its own invention.
Correct. Yeah. So each time, so it's at least one. On a good week, I can get up to 3.
That's
so
madness.
It's sometimes the pace of things is. I mean, and at the same time, I love doing it. That it's like, again, like I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, it's 8:00. I better get to my studio like ASAP. So
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
What drives this pressure you put on yourself to do this once a week?
Who knows? I'm at this point. It's just it's I guess just the way my brain is wired that I just want to come out with the stuff.
So it's not coming from a place that you fear that everything might just fall apart if you don't just keep cranking it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's definitely part of it. That I guess I feel that like right now I've got it. Like I've got the attention, I've got the community, so might as well do it to the max. I mean,
milk it right now, yeah.
And a lot of my businesses in the past like were sort of like that I went like super hard. So like one of my brands, Eastern Collective, it was a tech accessory brand, and I had products sold pretty much in every country, every continent around the world, and it was doing really well. And then not that I got bored of it, but I was like, all right, I'm ready to do something new, and I started a travel products brand. Eastern Collective continued to live on, but it was just sort of like autopilot, just e-commerce sales through Amazon on my own site. But I wanted to start something new, so I started a travel products brand. So
do you see a time when you might move on from unnecessary inventions?
I think like unnecessary inventions is very much like who I always have been, like in the core, like this is what I would love to do. So maybe not in the iteration that it is now of cranking out 1 to 3 inventions per week for social media channels, but like definitely the aura of what unnecessary inventions is and what it means, I think is what my life's work will hopefully continue to be.
And you keep all of these things you've made right there in your studio, don't you? Do you have them on display?
Yeah, I've got 2 shelves over here, kind of similar to the video magic of it all. Is sometimes they don't all survive the video filming process. So that's sort of what I'm working on. It's just reprinting one of each to have
Like a pop-up exhibit or something.
It's coming, hopefully coming soon. Yes. So that's sort of a big project I'm working on with the brand, is hopefully in real life experience the inventions, the technology behind the inventions, the filming aspect behind the inventions, to, kind of bring it offline and into the real world.
Would that be right there in your studio, or would it be somewhere else?
Nope. Hopefully the launch will be in New York City. So,
and it would just be like a pop-up kind of place.
And that's also like having it that like I could hopefully pack it up and then bring it somewhere else.
A traveling roadshow of Unnecessary Inventions, huh?
Right.
Yeah, and you would always be there with it, right? It would have to be you. Yeah.
I've had some I've had some like TV show stuff. They're like, how about you ship us the inventions, we'll use them, and we'll just have you on Zoom. And I'm like, it's not the same. I'm like, unless I can be there, it doesn't hit the same.
That's cool. You stick to that. That's nice. Do you have any plans of expanding this studio? It looks to me like it's getting pretty full there.
It is getting pretty full. Don't put those ideas in my head, because they've already kind of been there. There's like a space like literally right across the street.
Yeah, see, you got all that money from that Superbowl deal,
right? That's like, and to like kind of tying it into this podcast is that like I don't have a lot of space. I'm also like a clean freak, so I don't have really space to do woodworking stuff that like I don't want sawdust being everywhere. So I don't use power tools very often, because like I don't want them getting into the 3D printers or, getting into the gears of everything. So having a space, so maybe I just have there are a few spaces nearby that maybe are just like the dirty rooms that I could rent small things. And then this is the set for the channel. Where other things might happen.
What kind of inventions do you have in mind coming up next?
The next one, so I did do a video recently. So one thing I do every Sunday on my Instagram is called Sunday Inspiration Session. So it kind of helps me not have to always fully come up with ideas. So I'll crowdsource ideas from my audience, and each Sunday will kind of be a different theme. But a couple Sundays ago, instead of having people send their invention ideas, I said, send me your life problems. And then I would come up with invention ideas. So I did a YouTube video a little while ago on solving your life problems based on, problems that my followers had. So
what were some of those life problems?
Let's see. The first one was always losing your beer can. So I made a koozie that had an AirTag built into it, so you can use your phone to track it. I thought it also could double well. You could bring it to the bar so that you give your friend it with that you're drinking it. So if you lose your friend, you can find them based on what they're drinking. And for this video, one of them, and I think it's a pretty classic problem, is when you're washing dishes, of just getting like drenched. Like you do the spoon and then it ricochets off the spoon, the faucet, all the water gets all over you.
So it's always on your crotch. It's always on the crotch.
So I'm building these gloves that would be, like kitchen gloves, but then they're sort of gonna have these like oversized plexiglass shields so that it hopefully will block all of the ricocheting water. I don't know how practical it's going to be to move around in them. I'm still waiting on the acrylic sheets to show up so I can cut them. So I have to figure out what the exact size of the two arms are going to be. That's great.
I loved the gas price shield. That was pretty good. I think that was kind of.
And that one I woke up at like 6 a.m. I hate filming in public and like people looking at me. So I woke up at like 6 a.m. and I went to a gas station before they opened so I could film that at the pump.
Did anybody see you?
One guy pulled up, but then he realized the inside was closed and he drove away. So I was like, okay, I got a couple more minutes before.
These damn influencers.
Right.
Yeah. See, years ago I had this idea because I had this car that it had one of these check engine lights that would always come on, and there was nothing wrong with it. And my invention was to like take a piece of tape and just put it over that. It's like,
if you can't, out of sight, out of mind.
Problem solved. Wow.
Right. If you can't see it, is it really there?
That's right. Yeah. Well, Matty, it was great talking to you again. I really appreciate you joining me on the show.
Yeah, it was definitely great to catch up.
Yeah, we're going to have to do this again, and I'll talk to you later.